It started with a knock on the rusted metal door. Rain poured outside like the sky itself was grieving. Alina, only 19, sat curled up on the floor of her mother's crumbling apartment in a forgotten corner of the city. The smell of mold and cheap cigarettes clung to the walls like trauma. Her mother, Sonia, hadn't said a word all day, not since the man in the suit visited the night before. Alina didn't know who he was, just that he looked expensive. Shoes that could have fed them for months, and a watch that sparkled like the lies in his smile. "Pack your things," Sonia said suddenly, not even turning to look at her. Her voice was hollow. "You're leaving tonight." "Leaving where?" Alina asked, sitting up slowly, her stomach tightening. "What's going on?" But her mother wouldn't answer. The knock came again, 3 taps, sharp and firm. Sonia stood, wiped her face with the sleeve of her faded sweater, and opened the door. The man returned, this time with another. He was taller, bulkier, and wore sunglasses despite it being pitch black outside. Alina felt cold inside. "Ready?" the suited man asked. "We have the car waiting." "I'm not going anywhere," she said, standing now, voice shaking. "What is this?" The second man, the one with the glasses, stepped forward. "You're going to be a wife, starting tonight." The words dropped like bricks. "What the hell are you talking about?" she shouted. "Mom?" Sonia couldn't. "Look at her. They paid a lot, enough to clear all my debts, enough for you to live better." "I'm not for sale." But she was. Papers had already been signed. That night she was shoved into the back of a sleek black car, leather too soft, silence too loud, her fists clenched in her lap, her thoughts spinning. "You'll meet him soon," the suited man said from the passenger seat. "Don't speak unless spoken to. He doesn't like noise." "Who is he?" she snapped. "A man who's lost everything except money." They arrived at a penthouse downtown, so high up it felt like the sky pressed against the windows. A private elevator took them straight to the top floor, no stops, no escape. When the doors opened, she stepped into silence. Marble floors, cold lights. The air smelled like nothing she'd ever known. He sat by the window, back turned. A cane rested beside his chair. "Alina," the suited man said softly, "meet Mr. Devereux." The man didn't turn around. "Leave us." She stood still as the others exited, just her and the billionaire. "You're trembling," he said, voice low, smooth but detached. "You're blind," she said, "and I'm not your wife." He finally stood, tall, sharp suit, face unreadable. "Legally you are. Morally, I don't believe in such things." She stepped back. "Why me?" He walked toward her slowly. "Because I need someone who has nothing, someone who won't be missed, someone who can play the role, until I don't need her anymore." Her blood ran cold. "What role?" He leaned close. "The grieving widow." Alina didn't sleep that night. How could she? The room they gave her was bigger than her entire apartment back home, but it felt like a prison. No lock on the inside. No phone. No windows that opened. She paced for hours, replaying his words over and over. The grieving widow. She'd seen his face briefly before he turned away, stone cold, unreadable, like even his blindness couldn't soften his edge. He was beautiful in a cruel way, with the kind of face you'd see on a magazine cover or a wanted poster. The next morning she woke up to a knock, a soft one. A woman walked in with a tray of food and a folded black dress. She was middle-aged, maybe late 40s, with kind eyes but a stiff back, like someone trained not to speak unless spoken to. "You'll wear this," the woman said gently. "Mr. Devereux wants to take you to lunch." "With him?" "Yes. His lawyer will be present as well. There are preparations." Alina stared at the black dress. "This looks like something you'd wear to a funeral." The woman didn't answer. An hour later, she found herself sitting beside him in a luxury car, the driver silent as death. He didn't speak, just sat there, fingers drumming lightly on his cane. At the restaurant, private rooftop, no customers in sight, a sharply dressed man joined them. "I've drawn up the temporary contract," the lawyer said. "It's valid for 3 months. After that, if the terms are met, we proceed with the next phase." "What terms?" Alina asked. I ought to stay with Mr. Devereux, publicly act as his wife, attend a charity gala next week, and—" He paused. "Ensure the inheritance clause is triggered." "Inheritance?" she said, looking at the billionaire. His jaw clenched. "My brother's death was ruled an accident, but it wasn't." Alina blinked. "Wait, what does that have to do with me? They think I'm not mentally fit to inherit his estate because I'm blind, but the clause says, if I'm legally married, stable, and with a spouse by the date of the next board meeting, the full estate goes to me. And after that?" He turned to face her. His eyes, cloudy but sharp in their own way, seemed to pierce through her. "Then you disappear, with more money than you've ever dreamed of." "But what if I don't want to be part of this?" He smirked. "Then your mother's debt becomes public knowledge, and I guarantee you debt collectors aren't as polite as I am." Alina's heart dropped. She felt the walls close in. This wasn't marriage, it was a contract soaked in secrets. That night, back at the penthouse, she wandered into the library, hoping for air that didn't reek of manipulation. She ran her fingers over the spines of books she couldn't pronounce. Then she saw it, tucked between two thick novels. A photo. It was him, Devereux, younger, smiling, standing with another man, one who looked just like him, his brother, the same man whose death made this whole marriage necessary. Behind the photo, a small, handwritten note stuck out. Just 5 words. "He knows what you did." Alina's blood turned to ice. She wasn't the only one being played. Alina stared at the note like it might catch fire in her hands. "He knows what you did." Who wrote it? Who was it meant for? Her? Devereux? She shoved the photo and note back where she found them and spun around, heart racing. The library was empty, silent, but that kind of silence that feels watched. She didn't sleep that night either. But the next morning, everything changed. He was waiting in the lounge, dressed in a suit sharp enough to cut glass. "Come," he said flatly, "we're going shopping." "For what?" He smiled faintly. "For the perfect wife. People are starting to ask questions. Time to show them we're in love." She wanted to scream, but instead she nodded. She didn't have a choice, not yet. They went to designer stores where the staff practically bowed when they walked in. Alina had never touched clothes this expensive before. The texture, the scent. She felt like she was stepping into someone else's skin. "You're quiet," he said as she stepped out of the dressing room. "Is it the money that scares you? Or the fact that you like it?" She glared at him. "I don't like any of this." But deep down, she wasn't sure. That evening during dinner, she finally asked, "What really happened to your brother?" Devereux paused, holding his glass mid-air. "He died in a fire. House exploded. They ruled it an accident, but I don't believe that." "Why?" "Because 2 days before he died, he called me. Said someone was trying to kill him." "And you didn't tell the police?" He laughed, cold, bitter. "They don't listen to blind men with billions. They think we're all paranoid. Or dangerous." Alina felt a chill crawl up her back. "Did you love him?" she asked. Softly. He went still. "I envied him. Does that count?" She didn't respond. The man in front of her was a grave with secrets buried so deep. Even he didn't know where they ended. Later that night, Alina wandered the penthouse again. Something pulled her to the library. She opened the same book again, but the photo was gone. So was the note. She turned and nearly screamed. A man stood in the corner in the shadows, not Devereux. "You shouldn't be here," the man whispered. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I work for him. Or, I did. But he's not who you think." He stepped into the light. He looked shaken, like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. "That fire, the one that killed his brother? He knew it was coming. He was involved." Alina's chest tightened. "You're lying." "I wish I was." The man pulled something from his coat. A flash drive. "This has everything. Emails, voice notes, surveillance footage. He set it all up to look like an accident." "But—" His brother found out. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because you're next," he said, voice cracking. "Once the inheritance clears, he doesn't need you anymore. And Devereux? He doesn't let liabilities live." Then he vanished into the hallway, gone before she could stop him. Alina clutched the flash drive like it was her last breath. She had to play it cool, act the part, be the perfect wife. Because now, she was trapped in a mansion with a murderer. The flash drive felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in Alina's coat pocket. She barely slept. Every creak in the walls, every soft click of a door, made her heart pound like a warning. She knew now, knew too much. By morning, she made a decision. She couldn't run, not yet. If she did, he'd know. He'd find her. And after what the man in the shadows told her, she believed one thing for sure. Julian Devereux didn't make threats. He made corpses, so she smiled at breakfast, sipped her coffee, kissed his cheek when the housekeeper passed by. Pretended. He noticed. Of course he did. "You're getting good at this," he said with that unreadable smirk. "Almost makes me wonder if you're starting to enjoy being Mrs. Devereux." She smiled. Almost. But behind her back her nails dug into her palm so hard she almost drew blood. That afternoon, she waited until he was in his meeting, some call with a board of men too rich to ever be held accountable. Then she slipped into the office, locked the door, plugged the flash drive into the sleek silver laptop on the desk. And there it was. A string of emails between Julian and an unnamed associate, plans, schematics, a blueprint of the house where his brother died, details about a gas leak, a timer, the date of the fire, all of it. And then came the audio, Julian's voice, calm, clinical, discussing contingencies. "If he suspects we pull the plug, a quick death is cleaner. The insurance will cover the rest." Alina's stomach turned. She clutched the edge of the desk to stay upright. And then, another voice. One she didn't expect. Her mother. "You promised she wouldn't be hurt," Sonia said. "She's just a girl, Julian." Alina's blood turned to ice. "She's collateral," he replied. "Nothing more. You got your debt cleared. She gets a roof. We're all winning here, until we're not." The screen went black. "Looking for something?" The voice came from behind her. She turned slowly. Julian stood in the doorway, sunglasses off. His blind eyes locked straight on her like they could see into her soul. "You lied," she whispered, "about everything." He stepped forward. "No, Alina, I told you exactly what this was. You just didn't want to believe it." She gritted her teeth. "You killed your brother. I saved our family legacy. My brother was reckless. He was going to sell the company to vultures. I had to stop him. You used me. Used my mother." He tilted his head. "She sold you before I even spoke to her. Don't act like she's a saint. Everyone's got a price. Yours just happens. Ought to come with a wedding ring." She backed away. "I'll go to the police. He laughed, actually laughed. "You think the cops are going to believe a broke girl from East Hollow over me?" He leaned in, voice low. "You're not just trapped, Alina, you're invisible, and you'd better start acting like a good wife, or you'll end up like my brother." Then he left. The door locked behind him with a soft click. Alina stood frozen. He was right about one thing. No one would believe her. But what he didn't know was that she had already made a copy of the drive, and she had no intention of staying silent. The second Julian left, Alina collapsed to the floor, heart slamming like a drum line in her chest. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she planned. There was one copy of the flash drive hidden in her jacket, but the second one, she'd slipped it into the back of an old novel in the library, the same shelf where she found that photo. He wouldn't look there, not yet. For the next few days she played the role of the obedient wife. She smiled in public, touched his arm during meetings, posed with him for charity press shots like everything was picture perfect. But beneath the surface, she was watching, listening, calculating. She learned his routine. At exactly 4:10 p.m., he made a call to a private contact, every day. At 2:30 a.m., he drank a glass of scotch alone in the sitting room with no security around. He took pills before bed, something strong, something that knocked him out for hours. One night, after confirming he was out cold, she used a stolen keycard to access his private study. It wasn't like the rest of the house. This place was colder, darker, like it was never meant for guests. There were cameras, Old school, analog, no cloud. He liked keeping things offline, safer, smarter, more dangerous. She found files, real ones. Printed documents about offshore accounts, transfers after the fire, settlements paid quietly to employees who saw too much. Then, buried under the folders, she found something that made her stomach twist into knots. A wedding license, with another woman's name dated 6 months before her, and a death certificate. Her name was Evelina Crane, died in a car accident, unmarried, no surviving family. But Alina knew now. The man she married had done this before. She was not the first. The next day, Alina texted a name from a burner phone she'd hidden. Under the floorboards, Dante. He was the man who gave her the flash drive, the ex-employee, the one who vanished that night. He'd said, "You're next." Now she believed him. He responded 2 hours later with an address, an abandoned warehouse near the city's edge. That night she told Julian she wasn't feeling well. He didn't care, just nodded and locked the bedroom behind her as usual. But she had already jammed the latch earlier that morning. She slipped out wrapped in black, adrenaline burning through her veins. Dante looked worse than before, more paranoid. Eyes darting around like shadows had names. "You should have run the moment you had that drive," he said. "What the hell are you still doing with him?" "I needed more, now I have it." She tossed a file at him. The wedding license, the photos, the evidence. He's done this before. Dante opened the folder, face going pale. Jesus Christ, he's grooming wives as cover, then eliminating them once they serve their purpose. "He thinks he's untouchable," Alina said. "He is, unless we do this right." They made a plan. One shot, one public takedown. The gala was in 2 nights. Julian was bringing her as his shining new wife to prove to the board that he was stable, in love, trustworthy. But now Alina would be wired. The press would be watching. And every dirty secret would be timed to drop live. She only had to make it through the night alive. The night of the gala arrived like a storm in a silk dress. The penthouse buzzed with stylists, assistants, and security. Everything had to be perfect. Julian Devereux was putting on a show, and Alina, she was the centerpiece. The dress they gave her was black velvet, tight at the waist, and glittered like a night sky hiding thunder. Her hair was pinned back in these loose waves. Her makeup was flawless on the outside. Inside she was fire. She pressed the small recorder to her skin, tucked into the side of her bra. The second mic was clipped into her clutch, carefully wired by Dante. It would stream directly to a cloud server and, if triggered, send everything to the press, the police, the board, everyone. "All you have to do," Dante had said, "is keep him talking. Get him to say it out loud. We'll do the rest." But Alina knew better. Julian didn't confess. He controlled. She needed to push him into a corner. The gala was held at the Glassmore Tower, a building that looked like it was carved from light itself. The top-floor ballroom shimmered with wealth, dripping chandeliers, violins, gold-accented walls. People moved around in gowns worth small fortunes, sipping vintage wine and making fake promises with tight smiles. Julian stood beside her, arm linked through hers. To the world, they looked like a power couple. But every step she took, she felt the weight of Evelina Crane on her shoulder. The last wife. He leaned close, lips brushing her ear. "Smile. Darling, they're watching." "I'm smiling," she said sweetly. "Just not for you." The board members gathered, the press circled, and the CEO of Devereux Industries raised a glass. To love. To legacy. To a man who's overcome loss and emerged stronger than ever. "Julian, we are honored by your commitment to this family name." Everyone clapped. Julian took the mic. "Tonight is not just about wealth. It's about trust, stability, and the kind of loyalty you build in silence, not in spotlight." Alina's smile never dropped. She waited until he set the mic down. Then she stepped forward, champagne in hand. "Before we go any further," she said sweetly, "I want to give a toast too." Julian froze. The crowd turned. The cameras tilted. "Marriage is a strange thing," she said. You think you know the person next to you, but sometimes you're sleeping next to a man who planned his own brother's murder, who made his own wife disappear, and who doesn't realize. She turned to Julian, gaze sharp as glass, that she knows everything. The room erupted. Julian lunged forward, grabbing her arm with shocking force. "Turn it off," he hissed. "Now." "You're being recorded, Julian," she whispered. "It's over." But his expression shifted. Not fear, fury. "I told you, I don't lose." He yanked her closer, dragging her out of the ballroom and through the back hallway like a shadow swallowing light. Security didn't follow. They never questioned Julian. He pulled her into a side room, locked the door. "You had to. Ruin it," he said quietly, like he was talking to a child. "How you were supposed to be smarter than this." Alina stood her ground, chest heaving. "You can't hurt me, not with everyone watching." "Oh, I won't hurt you. Not yet. First, I'm going to destroy everything you think you've built." But suddenly, bang! The door burst open. Dante, gun drawn. "Step away from her." Julian smirked. "Ah, the ghost returns." But Dante didn't smile. "Your empire's already crumbling, Julian. The feed went live 10 minutes ago. They heard everything." Julian's face dropped for the first time. "Liar. You're done." Julian stood frozen in the doorway, the sound of his downfall still echoing through the city. His face twitched. Not fear, not defeat. Pure, poisonous rage. He took a slow step toward Dante, eyes locked on him like a predator sniffing blood. "You think they'll believe you? You're nothing, a disgraced errand boy with a drinking problem." Dante didn't flinch. "And yet, I'm the one holding the gun." "You're not going to shoot me. Try me." Behind Julian, Alina reached for the panic button on the wall. She didn't know if it would call security or set off alarms. Either way, she needed a distraction. He spun toward her, catching her hand mid-reach. His grip was iron. "You stupid little—" Bang! Julian dropped to one knee, clutching his shoulder. Blood bloomed across his suit, not fatal, but enough to bring him down. Dante lowered the gun, breathing heavy. "I warned you." Julian looked up, eyes burning through Alina. "You have no idea what you've done." She stepped over him, voice low. "No, Julian, you have no idea what I've become." Security rushed in seconds later. Police followed. News vans screeched. Outside the building, the media had everything, the audio, the documents, the trail of dead wives and buried secrets. And Julian Devereux, arrested, bleeding, screaming about betrayal, empires, and what I built with my own hands. But no one listened anymore. The perfect billionaire was now the headline monster. For the next few weeks, Alina's life was a whirlwind. Interviews, investigations, headlines like "Billionaire Wife Exposes Murder Plot," and from porn to whistleblower. She gave them the story, but not all of it. Some things she kept close, like the part about her mother, the silence she paid for with guilt. And Evelina Crane, the forgotten bride whose name she whispered at night, like a promise. But something unexpected happened. People listened, not just the press. Not just the justice system. Women. Women from all over who had been silenced, sold, manipulated. They flooded her inbox. They called her brave. They called her hope. And that was the one thing Julian could never buy. One night, a month. Later, Alina walked back into the penthouse. The locks had changed. It was no longer his, it was hers. She stepped into the same room where he once promised to make her disappear. And now, he was the one forgotten. But the story wasn't over. Because just as she poured herself a glass of wine and looked out over the city, her phone buzzed. Blocked number. No name. Just a message. "You think you stopped it. But this goes deeper. He was just the beginning." Alina's hands trembled. And attached to the message, a photo, not of Julian, but of another man in the same black suit, standing next to a woman who looked terrifyingly familiar. Not Evelina, herself, from a photo she never remembered taking. The photo burned into Alina's mind like a scar she didn't ask for. She stared at it, heart thudding against her ribs. The image was grainy, taken from a distance, but it was her, no question. Standing in a dim room beside a man with silver hair and a crooked smile. She wore a white dress, elegant, old-fashioned. Her eyes, blank, empty. She had never seen that dress, never met that man, never taken that photo. Her phone buzzed again. "Yuki, were chosen before you were born. Follow the red envelope in the library." She stood up so fast her wine glass shattered on the floor. The library was silent as always. Nothing had changed since the night she found that cursed note months ago. "He knows what you did." Except now there was something waiting. On the third shelf, tucked behind a thick novel, she found it. A red envelope. No name, no seal, just thick paper that smelled faintly like smoke. Inside was a document. Project Widow, Phase 3. Her name was listed, along with two others, Evelina Crane, Layla Moray, Alina Devons, each with a date, each with a label, selected, processed, matched. Her fingers shook as she flipped through the pages. Details about her life, her school records, medical history, photographs, even letters she'd written to herself when she was 12. They had been watching her for years, before Julian, before her mother's debt, before she even had a choice. And at the bottom of the file a note, handwritten. "The husbands are only part of the mechanism. The real experiment is survival." Dante was already waiting when she stormed into the safe house. He looked up, saw her face, went pale. "You got the photo, didn't you?" "You knew," she snapped. "You knew this went deeper." "I didn't know how deep." She threw the file at him. He flipped through it slowly, jaw tightening with every page. "They're running something bigger than Julian. Some underground operation. Power, money, psychological control. They test women like us. Push us to the brink. See who cracks, who disappears, who fights back." "And if they survive?" she asked, voice cracking. "They vanish, off-grid, ghosted, or they're turned into something else." "Like me," she whispered. He nodded once. "You're not the only one," he said. "I've been tracking them for 2 years." Julian was the easiest to bait. He was sloppy. But the ones behind him, they're smarter, hidden, and they're not done. Alina sat down. The weight of it all finally crushed into her spine. "I was never just a victim," she said. "I was a damn target." "No," Dante said. "You're a survivor, and now you know the game." A week later, the media buried the Julian story. A new scandal took its place. Politics, sports, rich men falling, just like they always did. Alina disappeared from the public eye. Her lawyers made a statement. Her mother was sent somewhere safe, and the penthouse was sold off to some faceless investment firm. But Alina, she was already in another city, with a new identity, and a red notebook filled with names, timelines, and revenge. Because the people behind Project Widow had made a fatal mistake, they thought surviving was the endgame. But Alina? She's just getting started.